I'm Tenitra Batiste, and inquiring minds want to know, will Ian Cunningham make a big splash on March 9th or April 23rd?
I'm Maria Martin, and we are quickly approaching the start of the new league year, which means things are about to get a little bit crazier around here.
I'm Aaron Freeman, and wide receiver was a problem spot for the last GM for the last 5 years. Hopefully, it will be a solution for the current GM for the next 5 years.
I'm Jarvis Davis, and Darnell Mooney is like Will Smith, too?
ATL! ATL!
Rise up, A-Town. It's the Falcons squad. Everything Atlanta Falcons every week. Breaking down all the big hits and game-changing plays from the ATL. The way only the Locked On Podcast Network can. Straight from the ATL, the Falcons Squad Show starts now.
Welcome into the Falcons Squad Show, your home for the best Atlanta Falcons football talk. I'm your host, Tenitra Batiste. Alongside me are Locked On Falcons host Aaron Freeman, Locked On analyst Jarvis Davis, and 11 Alive anchor Maria Martin. The Squad Show is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network. So MPX may know when he'll be ready to return, but do we know what ready looks like? We'll download on it and we'll debate on if the Falcons are cooking up something for next week. Also, we'll discuss which free agent the Falcons feel they need to lock down first. But first, let's talk about the Falcons moving on from a pass catcher and our thoughts on how he should be replaced. So the Falcons are planning to release Darnell Mooney. According to NFL Network's Ian Rappaport, he was scheduled to make nearly $12 million in 2026. So, of course, there's going to be some cost savings there, we have to assume. But, Jarvis, the real question is, what does this move say about Ian Cunningham's vision for this roster?
This wide receiver room needs to be reshaped. And I messed up that cold open, by the way. Drake London is the one that's like Will Smith right now. And
I was wondering. I was like, I was hoping reference again.
I butchered it. Yeah, it happens. Yeah, for all the people, listening and watching, like, yeah, Jarvis, that didn't make sense. I agree with you. Yes, it did. So, yeah, it happens sometimes. Players mess up. But anyway, I think Ian is just really looking at this wide receiver room saying, okay, Darnell Mooney is no longer valuable to what we're trying to do, accomplish on the offensive side of the football. He just had a conversation with Tommy Rees and Jeff Ulbrich about what type of players they want, what type of players they would prefer to have and that fit into what they're trying to do. And I'm assuming that Darnell Mooney did not fit into that role. And I totally understand it. When you're talking about potentially saving $12 million against cap and with a team that got some dead money they got to pay, yeah, it makes all the sense in the world.
Yeah. And for you, Maria, when you think about the Falcons moving on from Darnell Mooney, not a surprise necessarily, Maria, but it does make you think, or you have to think, what is the message where in terms of the vision for Ian Cunningham and not just this roster, but to your point, the blowing up and the reset of the wide receiver room?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's cool that we're starting to get little tidbits on what Ian Cunningham's actually going to do with this roster, right? Yeah. And I think Darnell Mooney is one of the biggest signals to that. There's no allegiance to these former players, especially ones that have had a little bit of a trickier injury history as of late. We saw Darnell's production dip down quite a bit last year, mostly because he just really couldn't stay 100%. And so for Ian, he's coming in looking at this with a bird's eye view. Like, okay, whatever you guys did the year prior to that, it doesn't really have ramifications on how we're going to operate moving forward. It does in terms of, just like the nitty gritty and the numbers and all those things. But in terms of his vision, now he gets his own thing. And that means this wide receiver room is going to look completely different. And yes, Jarvis, you're right. Drake London is standing there going, what the heck is going on? And he's going to be the person that I think will benefit from this a whole lot. But I do think that this is much needed. The wide receiver room was really one that was a really big issue for the Falcons last year. And so if you bring in some new pieces, there's a bunch of guys in the draft I'm sure we can get into that I think could add value to this roster. It signals to me that Ian has an overarching vision of we're going to change a lot around here, and it starts right now.
Yeah. And I like that thought, Aaron, that like Maria said, they're not wasting time. They're looking at a roster that they didn't necessarily construct, meaning Ian Cunningham and Kevin Stefanski as well, and saying, hey, let's just cut the fat because we've got work to do around here. We got work to do quickly. And Free, when you're looking around the league and you're seeing some of those teams that want to put themselves back in position to compete or get over the top, whether it's a Kansas City parting ways with Trent McDuffie, just as an example, and him going over to the Rams, like, yeah, Ian Cunningham is saying, I'm not wasting time. Thanks for your service. We're moving on.
Yeah, and I'm going to give a shout out to Darnell Mooney, because wide receiver has been a problem area for the Falcons basically the entire Terry Fontenot era, where it was not a strength. It was basically Drake London and not a whole lot else. And then we had one really great year from Darnell Mooney. And I say kudos to you, Darnell Mooney, for giving the Falcons something other than Drake London over the last 5 years at that position. But I think you're right, T, in the sense of they're going to remake that room. And they have a chance, I think, Ian Cunningham and Kevin Stefanski, to build it better because of those issues. And particularly that starts with the draft, where we did not see the Falcons really devote that many resources these last couple of years in at that position, other than Drake London and Casey Washington. And someone can correct me, I can't think of another Frank Darby, right? They were not really investing that many resources in that, and you understood that.
Casey Washington, Free.
No, he said Casey Washington.
Yeah,
he did.
Yeah.
He did. He gave his credit.
Yeah, he doesn't deserve double mentions on the show, Jarvis.
At all.
But like
crazy.
But the Falcons offense was built around the run game. It was built around the tight end position, and we'll see if they continue that under Kevin Stefanski. But they certainly need a new look at this wide receiver room, and it'll be interesting to sort of see how they build it. Do they focus on speed? Do they focus on size? Do they, that was Arthur Smith wanted size there. Zach Robinson wanted speed. And you can imagine a world where Ian Cunningham says, like, let's do both. Why not both? Right. So
depends on who your quarterback is.
Yeah. That is also a part of the conversation, Maria. And so they got to figure out that stuff. So it is something that is going to be fascinating to see how they sort of rebuild this room over the years to come.
Maria must have been taking a sneak peek into my head, because I was going, and who, pray tell, will said receiver be receiving a ball from come 2026? Because that might actually make some semblance of a difference. Kevin Stefanski and Ian Cunningham looking at the short term and the long term of it. And then Jarvis also even looking into, do we go draft wide? Because, hey, Ian Cunningham, coming from what the Chicago Bears did, no Rome Odunze as their most recent example, or 2 seasons ago, had a little bit of an injury issue this last season. But when he's on, he's on. So, yeah, that might also give you an idea of what the mindset or the thought process might be behind getting a wide receiver. And, Free, I'm disappointed in you that you didn't give acknowledgement and respect and kudos to David Sills the fifth. I mean, what he was able to do at the end of 2025.
Kirk's boy.
He's a restricted free agent, and they're gonna put that. Yeah. So
how could I forget David Sills?
How could you forget him, Free? I mean, the monster end of the season that he had with Kirk Cousins. I mean, it's just legendary, and I just thought you would have mentioned it. But back to Darnell Mooney.
So many jokes going through my head right now, and I feel like I can't make them.
Yeah, that's probably a good idea.
Then go with God on that one.
Yeah.
If Jarvis thinks it's an inappropriate joke, then
get this one out.
Yes,
you're out.
Out.
But you already tried to sneak one in with Casey Washington, and I could feel it loading, and I was like,
I'm surprised he didn't check me on that one, but
I did. And I was subtle enough with it, so mission accomplished.
Yes.
So going back to Darnell Mooney and the release, you guys have talked about it. I mean, I, of course, jest when I talk about David Sills the fifth, but when you look at that wide receiver room, honestly, there is no wide receiver room. It is Drake London, and that is it. So with that in mind, the Falcons having multiple holes to fill at wide receiver, Jarvis, do you see Ian Cunningham addressing that more in free agency or the draft? Where do you feel like he should address it?
I feel like he can't go into the draft with Casey Washington and Drake London. I feel like he has to do something in free agency. I'm not saying it's going to be on the first day when legal tampering opens up, but at some point he's going to have to talk to a veteran wide receiver that he likes, and Tommy Rees and Kevin Stefanski, like, oh yeah, we like him. Bring him in. Let's have a conversation and see what that number looks like. And I think that'll probably be like a at second wave type situation when it comes to, you know, the amount of money that's going to get passed out on starting on Monday. I mean, I know the new league year starts on Wednesday, but you know how they work out these deals. They just having conversations, and then next thing you know, Adam Schefter's like, oh yeah, such and such agreed with it to a deal. So yeah, I feel like you have to address it in free agency and the draft, because the one thing that Free pointed out, and I thought it was a really good point, like they never really addressed the wide receiver position outside of Drake London. They was like, oh yeah, we got a first round wide receiver, so we good. You know, no, you got to bring some guys in that could potentially contribute, you know, significantly at the wide receiver spot. You got to find talent throughout the draft, and history has proven in the NFL you can find wide receiver ones, wide receiver twos, all type of wide receivers throughout the entire draft. Yeah. And so there's no reason for you, there's no excuse for you not to be able to do so, because they, outside of Drake, it's just been guys that barely making the roster, practice squad guys. Like, so it's just, so yeah, I feel like Ian Cunningham is going to have to address it in both, because you just from a number standpoint, like you got to bring somebody in who can catch some balls, who has caught some balls in the NFL, and you got to go into the draft as well.
Yeah, and you got to get somebody who really can complement. Like Drake London can't be the only downfield threat. Drake London can't be really the answer to everything, right? But then when you look at free agency, and it's like, okay, at the top of the free agency wide receiver list, you got George Pickens, but you know, with him tagged, he's not going anywhere. He's in all likelihood going to be with the Cowboys. And then Alec Pierce over with the Colts. Well, they're probably not going to give up Daniel Jones' best option. Yeah. Exactly. And then it's going to cost you if they're going to give up Daniel Jones' best option. And then when you look at the third option, I think it's going to be interesting, but I still feel like there's every chance that Mike Evans is still going to re-sign with the Buccaneers. So those are your top three picks. And when you're talking about the top three in terms of free agency, that's money. Deebo Samuel, that's money. Juwan Jennings, that's money. So yeah, Jarvis, you may be onto something as far as either it's going to be in the draft, or maybe it'll be a little bit of a wait and see mode to maybe see who in that maybe 6 through 10 in the top 10 of wide receivers amongst the free agents may be available for the Falcons. What about you, Maria? Where do you see Ian Cunningham maybe leaning to for wide receiver? You see him more leaning draft? You see him more leaning free agency?
Well, I do see someone in the chat suggesting Stephon Diggs, and I'm just going to go ahead and just say
no.
Who was that, Jarvis? Who said no? Who? Huh? What was that? Did someone off screen say no?
Yeah, I heard a no from like another universe.
Yeah,
yes.
Was that the room, Jarvis?
Sorry, my bad. I blew out you all's ears. My bad.
That was incredible. The craziest thing was I saw your mouth opening to like give this like yell right before you didn't make it off screen yet. So
no,
letting you know. Yeah, Stephon Diggs is really Stephon Diggs is not something that I think would be realistic for the Falcons, if I'm being totally honest. However, yeah, I saw someone else say that we don't want the Diva Diggs. Yeah, I don't know this front office well. None of us do yet, but just a guess, I don't think that would be a reality for these guys. But just in the couple of weeks that we've really gotten to know Ian a little bit better, month, whatever, the timeline is so messed up because there were 45 introductory press conferences this offseason for the Falcons. He's very, very heavy on the draft, obviously. But when you only have 5 draft picks, that becomes a little bit more interesting. And he's already said, this is going to be the last year that we have 5. We're going to try to bring in more this year, possibly. They could obviously just end up with the 5 that they have. However, they could get creative and free up some space. We keep going back to Ian's first year in Chicago. Obviously, he wasn't the decision maker, but he was in the room. And they started with 5 draft picks. It turned into 10 that draft. Well, that could happen again. And it is going to require strategy and a little bit of aligning of the universe, if you will. But I do believe that he really finds value in these picks. It's something that he has said over and over and over. Picks. Also, that Kevin Stefanski and his offense, even though he's not going to be calling it, they're going to run the football a pretty good bit, right? So, I don't really know where they're going with the receiver aspect of it. However, I do agree with Jarvis in that you can't just rely on Casey Washington obviously, as your only other threat compared to Drake London. You need somebody who has experience. You need someone who can give you significant upside. They thought they had that in Darnell Mooney a couple of years ago when they brought him over, and it seemed like they did for a year. And then obviously injuries played into that, and that didn't really work out the way they thought it would. $27 million later, he is out of here. So I think that they're going to lean, if I had to guess, they're going to lean trying to get from the draft, but that can't be their only option.
Yeah.
I think when we look at this room and we go, it's Drake London and then who else? And I think you got to go out there and probably add 4 wide receivers. And as Maria just outlined, it's highly doubtful that you can just do that via one of these avenues, right? We're expecting them to trade back and acquire more picks in the draft. So I could definitely see a world where you add 2 wide receivers in the draft if you can get 7, 8 or more draft picks by the time that weekend is done later in April. But then that also leaves you an opportunity to get 2 wide receivers in free agency between now and then, just to have some bodies in the room that just in case the draft doesn't break your way. That's the thing about the draft, where it's like it's very unpredictable, and you may be like, oh yeah, we'll definitely get a wide receiver in round 2, and then all the receivers you like are off the board, and you're like, well, I guess the next wide receiver that we want is a round 4 guy, and then you got to wait till round 4, and that changes the math on how much you can expect out of a rookie, typically with guys that are typically can produce right away earlier in the draft and whatnot. So I think we'll see the Falcons go both avenues in terms of free agency and the draft. It's just, to me, a question of how much investment they want to make. How much money do they want to spend in free agency? Or are they just going to go out there and get bodies that can be functional in this offense? Guys that they know, like Josh Reynolds and Jalen Tolbert and Brandon Cooks and Olamide Zaccheaus, those types of guys? Or are they going to be a little bit more willing to spend money on guys that maybe can move the needle a little bit more? And the same thing applies to the draft. Do you go with a wide receiver with that top pick at pick 48 in round 2? Or do you wait till day 3 and just sort of be like, we're just going to take some flyers on some developmental guys and all that stuff? So I think that remains to be seen, but I definitely think we'll see a mix of both free agency and the draft when it comes to filling out this wide receiver room.
Yeah, and you make a great point, Free, about the 4th round, because that is a crapshoot, because you don't know if it's going to be a developmental guy or if you miraculously have a situation where someone great like Xavier Watts was for the Falcons this past draft, if he falls into that range, and then you can take advantage of somebody who's really already ready. Speaking of ready, MPX may know when he'll be ready to return, but do we know what ready looks like? We'll take that under further review.
Hey, it's Matt Derry from the Locked On Lions podcast. The people I love depend on me. If I'm gone, the financial responsibilities don't disappear. I didn't want my family figuring things out during the hardest moment of their lives. That's why I knew only one place to go. I chose life insurance through my friends at Ethos. Ethos makes getting life insurance fast and easy, 100% online. You can get a quote in seconds, apply in minutes, and get same-day coverage. There's no medical exam. You just answer a few simple health questions. You can get up to $3 million in coverage. Some policies are as low as $30 a month. I love the folks at Ethos. Protect your family with life insurance from Ethos now by going to ethos.com/LockedOnNFL. In as little as 10 minutes, you can get the free quote and up to $3 million in coverage at ethos.com/LockedOnNFL. That is ethos.com/LockedOnNFL. Ethos.com/LockedOnNFL. Application times and rates may vary.
Thank you all for making the Falcons Squad Show your first listen of the day. And thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. So Maria, John Gruden asked Michael Penix Jr. if he'll be ready for training camp. And for the regular season, Penix's response was, quote, "I am." But what do you think ready looks like for Michael Penix?
This is tough because I believe so much in Mike and I want him to be back and be quote unquote ready.
Yes.
Ready to go, whatever. I am growing more skeptical of this scenario. Okay. I really am. And I think a lot of it is because the rumblings coming out of Indianapolis and the combine or that this front office really doesn't feel a lot of allegiance to Mike, which is not, it shouldn't be a surprise to people. You know, they're not the ones that drafted him. It's not an indictment on him. And to be fair, you know, they really haven't seen what he's completely capable of. And now he doesn't even know what he's completely capable of at this very moment in time. Obviously, hopefully that will change. And I think for Mike, publicly, I watched that interview with Gruden, and I think he doesn't have another option other than to say, I'm going to be ready, right? Like, he can't say, oh, you know, I'm not going to be ready. No, he would never do that. He has to firmly believe that he's going to be ready, because he now knows he's turning around, looking over his shoulder like, wait a second, am I not the guy anymore? You know, there is a different conversation being had, I'm sure, in Michael's circles than that we're having publicly. And there is a different pressure now that comes with that. You know, he was the future, and I'm not saying he's not, but when he was drafted, this was going to be the future of the franchise, and this was such a sure thing. And now there's so many different variables that indicate that could not be the case. And so for Mike, I think ready means you got to be ready to go out there and show them everything you've got. And I don't know that that's a realistic timeline come training camp. I hope I'm wrong, and I hope he can go out there and do everything and just be limited in some regard. I'm just growing a little bit more concerned, specifically for Mike, when it comes to him being, quote unquote, the future of this franchise.
Yeah, and Michael Penix Jr. may say he will be ready for training camp in the regular season, but what do you think that ready actually will look like for him?
Yeah, that I don't know the answer to that question, T. You know, when it comes to what is ready for Michael Penix, is ready being here for training camp, taking reps with the ones,
right,
and being the week one starter, or is ready just like taking your time, and then when it's time to potentially pivot from whoever that bridge quarterback that the Falcons bring in this offseason, you know, when it comes to October, November, or whenever that is, you know, is that ready for Michael Penix? I don't know. But I think Maria nailed it in the sense of before, you know, this organization, you know, and the decision makers in Terry Fontenot and Raheem Morris very much were firmly like, he is our future. We believe in him. He is the franchise, all that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. And the new regime has no such loyalty. And he has to go out there and essentially prove himself all over again. And rather than being treated with the sort of loyalty and whatnot that a top 10 quarterback pick usually is treated.
Yeah.
At this point, he's no different than like a third round pick at this point, because you know, the injuries and the maybe the lack of production on the field. And it's just like, you got to go out there and prove yourself. And so I'll be fascinated to see what ready is for Michael Penix when it comes to timelines. You know, as Maria said, like, you know, what else is he going to say? So actions will speak louder than words. I'll believe it when I see it, when he is cleared. And hopefully we'll get, you know, some news in the next 6 months about, you know, from someone other than Michael Penix about when that will be, that we can probably put a little bit more stock into that, because every player thinks, oh, you know, 4 months from now, I'll be the fastest ACL recovery ever. Like, if you thought Adrian Peterson was a miraculous recovery, like, wait till you see what I do. And like, every player has that attitude. And so like, you need to have that attitude, right? But like, at the same time, it's like, we'll see. Adrian Peterson's an alien. We'll see what you can do, my guy. So yeah, I don't know the answer to what ready looks like for Michael Penix, but I'm eager to find out.
Yeah, and for you, Jarvis, definition of ready for Michael Penix Jr.
I think he's talking about mentally, because I think physically, I don't think he knows when he's going to actually be able to go out there and practice at 100%. All right, so I feel that he's talking about more mentally being able to, you know, grasp the playbook, get a good understanding of what this offense is going to look like, with building and establishing a relationship with Tommy Rees, Kevin Stefanski, what they're trying to do, and, you know, continue to rehab. That's the only thing that I feel he actually can control at this moment, right? Yeah. Like doing everything that you're supposed to do when it comes to my rehab. Yeah. Making sure you're in there every day, making sure you establish relationships with whoever they bring in at the wide receiver position, you know, because you know, like you said, it's only a couple of guys in there in that bad boy right now. So when he says he's ready, I don't think he's fully 100% unless he's kind of a little thrown off a little bit, because I mean,
a lot of players are, you almost have to be.
You almost have to be a little throw, to be really good at it, what I'm saying? Like, so that's, I wasn't really, really good, what I'm saying? So that's why I'm not throwing off. I know y'all might disagree with me. You don't look at me like that. Maria, I see your face. Free, don't make that face. T, don't make that face. For those who are listening, these people are looking at me crazy right now.
Sorry,
like I just cussed and passed gas at the same time. But anyway, I think this is one of those instances where Mike is just really confident in what he's able to accomplish. He's been through this before. And I think he's saying like, yep, I'm gonna be hands down. I'm ready. I'm gonna be ready to rock whenever that time comes.
Whenever the time comes. And like you said, what else is he supposed to say? And also when he was asked if he's going to get the Falcons back to the playoffs and back to a Super Bowl, Penix's response, quote, "It's going to get done, guaranteed." Now that's strong. That's strong. So Maria, I ask, do you see that as a possibility right now? And if not now, when do you see the playoffs and a Super Bowl ring really being viable for this franchise?
I mean, the Falcons are not going to be playing for a Super Bowl next year. I'm sorry. It's just not, and if they are, replay that on freaking Loop, please. No, please. Not, like I will welcome that, because ever since I came here, I've covered this team
it's all
for
your fault, Maria.
seven seasons, and I've never been to a playoff game. I've never been, which is so crazy. So please play that on loop if I'm wrong. They're so far away from that, in my opinion. And there's so many moving parts, so many question marks around this team. And I love the confidence that Mike has. Yes. Trust me, I love that. And I think that if you're a quarterback and you're leading a team and you don't have that, I don't want it. I think it's important that he has that belief and that he has that leadership. But if I'm skeptical about anything, and I'm an overtly positive person, as you guys very well know, I think the guaranteed Super Bowl, at least in the immediate future, T, because that was your question, not necessarily what Mike was saying. Mike was saying guaranteed a Super Bowl, timeline to be determined.
Yeah.
That I get that. I totally understand that. Tomorrow, this season, I don't know. But, I really love the confidence that Mike has. And I think that is what you got to have when you're a quarterback.
It is. It really is. And when you're out there with social media and just hearing naysayers, you have to keep telling yourself, you got to believe your own narrative. Yeah, you totally do. But in believing your own narrative, Free, sometimes you have to make sure that your narrative is still within the confines of reality. So do you see a Super Bowl getting back to the playoffs and a Super Bowl response? It's going to get done, guaranteed. That feels like a now type of response to me, but do you see that as a possibility right now? And if not now, kind of when do you see the playoffs and the Super Bowl run really being viable for this franchise?
Well, I think playoffs are possible because the Falcons play in the worst division of football. So it's like the bar is low. It's the lowest it can possibly be, in the NFL, playing in the NFC South. So I think it's possible. I wouldn't guarantee it by any means, because
he said Super Bowl guarantee.
So it's like, sure, you can get in dance and we'll see what's what, but it's certainly a possibility. And hopefully, rather than what has been the model, I think these last couple of years with the Falcons, which has been, we got to push all our chips to the middle of the table and try to make the playoffs now.
Yeah.
I think the Falcons under this new management have to sort of balance the short-term benefits as well as the long-term benefits. But, we're talking about quarterbacks having confidence. Only one of us on this panel is married to a professional quarterback. So I'm just curious, Maria, is Levi
Jarvis,
walking around the house being hyper competent, like hyper confident,
that way, Maria.
like
Sorry.
Michael Penix and whatnot? Like I just need to know, like, is this just the norm for professional quarterbacks?
I'm sorry. I totally tuned out when Jarvis is acting a fool again. What did you say? Sorry.
I'm wondering.
What got married to a man? Like, what am I supposed to say?
Is this level of confidence just normal for NFL
player? I'm sorry, Aaron. Go ahead. Just do your thing.
Is this level of confidence just normal for NFL quarterbacks, or is Levi just walking around the house just being the most confident human being on the planet?
I mean, no, because he doesn't play anymore. But when he played, yeah, like you gotta have every belief in the world that you are gonna go out there and win every game. Like you literally have to. It's how quarterbacks have to be wired. But yeah, I mean, he's obviously got confidence. I think every quarterback does, So yeah.
Yeah. So can I share like my throw it off moment?
No.
As a
Moment?
player?
Like as in just one? Go ahead.
Let's go.
You got to be like this, man. So I was trying out for the AAFL, one of those spring leagues that ultimately didn't even get launched. And I came up with this idea in my head, like, hey, you know what I'm saying? I'm pretty heavy right now. I'm not that fast. I'm not as quick as I used to be. I'm going to go try out as an offensive lineman. Being that I had played defensive line all my doggone life. So I'm going to go try a professional league and try out at a position that I hadn't played since high school and think I'm about to get ready to make this joint. So, yeah, I understand the confidence that Michael Penix has. And I should kind of did all right, too, in the workout. But anyway, Freak, why you do it? Don't do that, man.
Are you trying to redeem yourself?
You killed that
What's
workout.
happening?
You killed that workout. I'm sure you did.
I killed it. All right. Still didn't have a job when I left that mother. But anyway, man, I think when you try to dig into the mind of these athletes, like you've been pumped up all your doggone life. Like,
yes.
As far as your circle around you, people like, yeah, you could do it. You good. They come to see all your games. So you always been affirmed all your life. So when it comes to when you have these trials or tribulations or whatever, like you're going to attack it with all the confidence that you've gotten built up over all the years. So I understand why he would say something like this, but I don't think that we're in a space where you're talking about the Falcons competing for a Super Bowl. To be honest with you, I wouldn't be too shocked if they made the playoffs.
Yeah.
Like Aaron said, this division is poopy. And
they should have made it last year.
Yeah, exactly. They had a real opportunity last year to do it. So when you talking about just making the playoffs, I can see how that. But when you talking about moving into the whole Super Bowl piece, that's a whole different conversation. That kind of goes back to being thrown off a little bit, and that's okay.
Oh no,
it's okay. You got to be thrown off.
But to be fair, like he can't really go out there, and say, we're far away from a Super Bowl. Like it's never gonna come here while I'm here. And so, I don't know. Maybe one day. You know what I mean? Like he can't do that.
But Maria, I feel like maybe he could have like come to a middle ground, right? Like you said, he can't say, no, we're not there yet, because that sends a negative message. People question your confidence in yourself because you're kind of the linchpin for the Falcons getting to the playoffs and getting back to a Super Bowl as well. But I'd love for him to maybe say something like, that's the plan, or something that like, that's what we're going after. That's what we're looking for. That's what we feel confident that where we can get. That's fine to say it that way. But when you throw out, when you give it the old Joe Namath.
Nah, he gave it the whole.
Come on, T. Come on now. Like, just give you a scenario here. I know we got to move on.
No, I'm about to give you a scenario too on why I'm like hell to the no, but you go first. You go first. You go first.
Man, walk up to you. Ask you how you doing, name, all that good stuff.
Oh,
like,
no. Oh, no.
Well,
but go ahead.
So what would you rather hear? What would you rather hear? Hey, I know by the time we finish this conversation, I'm going to have your phone number and we're going to go out on a date. Or I would like to have your phone number and maybe we can go out sometime. What would you respond better to as a woman?
Now it depends, because now is he a Lexus or is he a Corolla? I'm just trying to clarify, because typically the Corolla.
We're talking about NFL players. We're talking about 1%, so it's definitely Mercedes. It's BMW.
Well, hey, no, I don't do BMWs. No offense though, because if we get sponsorship from them, I'll drive it. It'll be black man's or black woman's wheels all day, every day. But yeah, I hear you in terms of, yes, in the 1%, like when we ask these questions, like, why does this guy come up to me, but this guy doesn't come up to me? Yeah, typically the answer is that guy's like, hey, I don't have anything to lose, so I'm just going to shoot my shot, right? So yeah, no, it's okay to like shoot your shot, although I wish that shot shooter wouldn't always be the one to shoot, but it's okay to shoot your shot. But I also think that they should be realistic in shot shooting, right? So I feel like maybe this was more of an example of the shot shooting I get. That's what Michael Penix Jr. did, as opposed to the shot shooting I should get.
I love how you landed that plane. That's great, T.
Yeah, so just saying.
But
on the same token, I feel like with Michael Penix Jr., that would have been more, and this is me being like really serious and really honest. I think if it was an organization like the Kansas City Chiefs, right, where they had a very off year last year, even before Patrick Mahomes went down, they were having an off season, but they have 3 Super Bowls in tow. So you believe them when they say we're going to get it done, guaranteed. The Philadelphia Eagles, it seems like they go to the Super Bowl every 2 to 3 years when they figure out who is the right offensive coordinator for Jalen Hurts. So if they come out, if Jalen Hurts says that this year, guaranteed, we're like, well, every other year they get an OC, they go to the Super Bowl, it's a done deal. There are certain franchises that have the ability to say that. Heck, and I know Falcons fans are going to get mad, but in your division, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have more ability. Baker Mayfield has more ability to say that than anybody else, because the Bucs have won a championship, even if not with Baker Mayfield, and their organization has continued to take advantage of a weak division.
You know what it feels like.
Yeah. There you go. So I think for me, again, I don't mind the moxie and the confidence that MPX has. Hey, that's what you're supposed to have as QB1. It's just tough for me to kind of go with that. And I think it's tough for us all to kind of go with it, because there's really no recent track record for the Falcons to be able to say, hey, we're getting back to the playoffs and it's going to get done guaranteed. So I think that's where my trepidation kind of came in. But again, I'll end on a positive note. I like how you talk, Michael Penix Jr. I like it. I like it. I like it. If you know, 4 brothers. Are the Falcons cooking up something for next week? We'll unpack it next up. This episode of our Falcon Squad Show is brought to you by BetterHelp. March is a time to celebrate women, especially around International Women's Day, and to recognize just how much they carry at work, in relationships and families, and in all the unseen roles they step into every single day. It's easy to celebrate that strength, but it's just as important to make space for their emotional well-being. And honestly, that goes for all of us. So you've got to take a moment to celebrate a woman in your life who's had a lasting impact on you. A best friend, a partner, daughter, sister, mom. And you got to think about this. Think about how much they carry. And it has to make you think, how many of them are doing that? And in my case, and even Maria's case, how many of us are doing the same thing? The roles we play, the expectations we carry, the pressure we don't always talk about. But therapy can help with that, creating balance, setting healthy boundaries, and supporting your overall well-being. With over 30,000 licensed therapists and more than 6 million people served worldwide, BetterHelp is the world's largest online therapy platform, and it works. Just fill out a short questionnaire, get matched with a licensed therapist, and if it's not the right fit, switch at any time. Your emotional well-being matters, so find support and feel lighter in therapy. Sign up and get 10% off at betterhelp.com/lockedon. That's better, HELP.com/lockedon. So Jarvis, you're not going to give me credit before we start talking about our next topic. You're not going to give me credit for a movie reference, like a whole movie reference.
What? Which one?
You didn't give me credit for that, man. 4 Brothers. Like I was so proud of myself that I actually know a movie. It's a miracle.
There we go. Shout out to you, T, for finally
like Maria said,
a reference to a movie.
You and I are 0-2 for landing jokes today, so we're just gonna move right along.
Wait a minute. Why am I still catching strays?
No, me. I'm giving myself a straight 2. I said we're 0-2 together.
Yes.
For not landing the plane on jokes today. Anyway, Free. The plane will land for legal tampering come Monday in the NFL. Teams may negotiate with impending free agents starting March 9th at 12 p.m. Eastern time. So do you think the Falcons will surprise us Monday? And if so, how do you think they might?
No, I don't think so, because typically that Monday is for you to make those big splashes. We all love the 12:01 tweet from Adam Schefter and Ian Rappaport about the first big signing of that day, and you're like, they negotiated this really fast, because there's no way that tampering occurs before 12 p.m. on that Monday Eastern time. So I typically that first day is, and you go back over the years, like you go back to 2 years ago, that was the day when the Falcons were able to land Kirk Cousins. That first day last year, I don't recall them signing anybody on that first day. I think Divine Diablo was either like Tuesday or Wednesday when that news sort of broke. And so typically, if you're going to make a move on Monday, you're making a big move that typical day in the 5 minutes after 12 p.m. that you can negotiate $100 million contract, as these agents so often do. So I'm not expecting a big surprise on Monday for the Falcons, because I don't expect the Falcons to go out there and spend that type of money in this offseason cycle. As Jarvis said earlier, like, it's more going to be towards the end of the week. It's going to be that second wave where I think the Falcons are going to be a little bit more bargain hunting. We saw this happen with Ian Cunningham and Ryan Poles when they first got to Chicago. They didn't really make any big splashes in that first free agent period, because they just wanted to kind of spend that first year trying to figure out what they had. They had a lot of dead money. They traded away Khalil Mack. And then the following offseason, that's when they really pushed more of their chips, making the big trade to get DJ Moore, signing Tremaine Edmonds, and all those types of moves. So I think we're going to see a similar approach for the Falcons. Maybe some low-key bargain bin shopping, maybe a splash or two in the middle of the week, but nothing out the gates on Monday. And then they'll just kind of use this year as an evaluation year. And then when they have a big windfall of cash next year, that's when we can expect the big splash move at 12:03 p.m. Eastern time in 2027. So I'm not expecting a big surprise, but, I always welcome it as someone who does a daily podcast, and I would love to be able to talk about a move on that Monday on Locked On Falcons, but I'm expecting a slow news day.
Yeah. And I think, too, for the signing of Divine Diablo, I mean, some people kind of saw it and said, oh, wow, that's a good move. And it actually technically came out, but like you said, it wasn't a 12:01 signing. It was March 10th, which was the first day of last year's free agency signing. But to your point, A, wasn't like right there at the top of the day, and B, it wasn't the splashiest, because not everybody kind of knew who he was or what he would be capable of doing here. So yeah, I would agree with you. It's not, it doesn't lean in that direction normally for the Falcons. But do you think that'll change this year, Jarvis? Do you think there will be a big splash come Monday in free agency when legal tampering begins?
No. Short answer is no. For the reasons that Free laid out. But I think I'll be interested to see if Ian Cunningham goes after the guys that are kind of going to fill out the back end of the roster, like guys that he really wants from that standpoint. Because Tori wrote a really good article about the meetings that Cunningham had with Kevin Stefanski and not Kevin Stefanski, but Tommy Rees and Jeff Ulbrich, and he wanted them to give him like what type of players that he's looking for, and he even kind of sent them examples as far as okay, what about this guy? And being that they don't have that much draft capital, he said that, hey, give me a 5th round guy that has the trait that you're looking for, or that one trait that you're looking for, so we can be able to maximize that player by bringing them in. I'd be very interested to see if they do the same thing for free agency, because that is what it's all about. Knowing what you want, knowing exactly what you're looking for. And while everybody's out there trying to spend the big money, hey, let me go over to the guy that not used to getting a phone call on this day, on the first day of the new league year, and say, hey, what will it take? And here's what we're thinking as far as what your role could be for us if you decide to sign with the Falcons.
Yeah, Maria, for you, do you expect Ian Cunningham and company to go in a different direction, be aggressive, and right at the top of legal tampering, we hear Falcons made a splash in free agency?
I don't, especially given it's the first year with all these guys together and they've got so many things to figure out. I think if the roster was a little bit more constructed and then in a better place, maybe we would be talking about something different. I just think there's too many moving parts for them to be that aggressive off the top. Now, big moves can always happen. They could surprise us elsewhere. In fact, to me, everything is a surprise with them because they're new. And so we have no idea, how they operate and what they're going to do and how they're thinking. But to make a surprise big splash that everyone is freaking out about when the clock turns midnight, I just don't really foresee that happening. But I mean, I do think that both of these guys, and Kevin Stefanski and Ian Cunningham, really value the diamonds in the rough, so to speak. It's a question that I asked them when I was up there in Indianapolis. And how much do you enjoy kind of finding those guys? It's a lack of a better phrase for them, but that's kind of what they are. And they have had a very good track record, both of them, in being involved in rooms that have found guys like that. And so I think that that's such a big part of the NFL, right? You want to find a guy that is not the big splash that eventually does become the big splash. And I think that's really more of what they're looking for this year.
I like that. Maybe not the big splash, but will become the big splash eventually. And you can kind of say that about like a Caden Ellis, right?
No doubt.
We knew he was a good player, but what he turned into when he got here made that a really good that was a good pick. That was a good splash in free agency. Now, Terry Fontenot, maybe not day one, but he was known to make a big splash during free agency here and there, a la maybe a Jesse Bates III. But does Ian Cunningham have any room to be splashy in his first time calling the shots for the Falcons? In your opinion, Freed? I think Maria kind of already alluded to, hey, she doesn't think that there's necessarily that room. But hey, do you think that there's that room to be splashy this first time?
I think there's the opportunity for that to happen, right? We talked about the wide receiver position and how it was a problem spot basically for 4 out of the last 5 years for the Atlanta Falcons, where it was just kind of Drake London, or you can go back to it was just Russell Gage in that first year under Arthur Smith and whatnot.
Oh my gosh!
Right?
Russell Gage forever.
That's nice, man.
And so I think there are some areas of this roster that have been problem areas for this team for a long time. Cornerback too is one of those areas. And, when you look at the draft and you wonder a little bit, okay, how deep is this cornerback draft class compared to the wide receiver draft class, where I think most people agree this is one of the stronger and one of the deeper wide receiver rooms. So you can probably maybe afford to wait till the draft to make the quote unquote big splash there at the wide receiver 2 spot. But can you do that at the cornerback spot? And so I think you could go out there and, whether it's like a Reek Woolen or somebody or Nashawn Wright that they bring over from the Bears or something like that, you can go out there and maybe spend a decent chunk of change and be like, okay, we solved the cornerback 2 problem. We know this has been a revolving door for the last 5 years with AJ Terrell. It's no longer going to be a revolving door. So I could see them making a move like that. And so I think there are opportunities for Ian Cunningham to make splashes like that, where it's just like, yes, I know you guys have been complaining about this for 5 years. You're not going to have to complain about it again at this point in time. And so I think there will be those opportunities, but whether or not the Falcons pull the trigger on that, I think remains to be seen.
Yeah, and for you, Jarvis, do you see Ian Cunningham making a splashy move in his first time calling the shots in free agency for the Falcons? Or do you think that it's more likely he'll stack picks and that'll be his big splash in the draft?
Oh, I definitely think it's the latter. But my thing is how he does it is what I'm very intrigued by. Is it, hey, Kyle Pitts wants $17 million a year as for the next 3 years. Oh, okay, all right, cool. We'll give you a call back. Hey, Ryan, y'all need another tight end? Or Jacksonville, do y'all want a tight end? Do y'all need a tight end? And he messed around and flipped Kyle for a second this year or and a fourth next year. Those are the type of things that I would feel would be a huge splash, because a lot of people, we had these conversations on this podcast about, Kyle Pitts being on this guaranteed to be on his roster. And I would like to say, I don't know if I can guarantee that, because you got a general manager that is obsessed with getting more picks, who said that they had, and Kevin Stefanski said that, hey, we have 5 picks right now. I pay attention to that type of stuff. And if he's able to somehow flip not pay Kyle Pitts, flip him for some draft capital this year and next year, I'll be sitting up here more like, yeah, man, you just took a deep old dive into that pool, and I'm ready to jump right in with you because I want to see where this doggone train is going, baby. Not that train's going water, but you know, y'all know what I mean.
Yeah. We followed you somehow. We followed you there. So Maria and Free, real quick for you guys. Obviously, you both don't expect the Falcons or Ian Cunningham to make a splash in free agency per se, but maybe the splash will be him stacking picks. Maybe that's where he'll make his big splash in the draft.
Yeah, I mean, I think I really do agree with Free. Like anything could happen. I don't think this big splash is going to come early from Ian Cunningham. If anything, it's going to come a little bit later, if it happens at all. But I just, similar to what Jarvis is talking about, and side note, I love whenever Jarvis gets on the phone and does these deals. It's literally my favorite thing.
I can still be your agent.
I know, but you're going to be my agent.
3%, that's all I need, man.
And I love your percentage. It's so good. But I do think, you know, Jarvis is nailing it when he talks about we only have 5 picks right now. It's just been such a big emphasis by this group that they are obsessed with draft capital. And to me, that doesn't necessarily signal big splashes in free agency. Now, it could, you know, it very well could. But right now, I just see all of his energy into how many picks can I get to get cheap labor, essentially, and really free up this roster financially for a better future position. That's how I envision this going down for the first year for these guys. But I would be not totally shocked if there is one tiny little big splash elsewhere.
Ditto.
That's a wrap.
Enough said. Well, we'll see if Free has more commentary on free agents and whether or not he feels that the Falcons need to lock any of them down first. We'll tackle that in the look ahead. All right, Free, I'm giving you the floor just in case you want to expound a little bit more on where the Falcons might go with their free agents. They, of course, have 19 unrestricted free agents. You've got David Onyemata, Kay Nellis, Arnold Ebiketie, Tyler Algier. Which impending free agent or agents, if any, do you think they'll get signed first and foremost? I mean, obviously, they're probably going to re-sign somebody, but who do you think they're going to put their primary focus on or make a priority?
Ooh, that's tough. You know, to be honest with you, it might be Zane Gonzalez. Like that might be the first signing that the Falcons make, where it's just like, we need a kicker. And Zane, you did a pretty good job. So that is kind of the first priority where I think they may go there. If you're asking me, because I'm not expecting that many of the bigger name free agents the Falcons have going into this offseason to re-sign with the team. I think we're going to see a lot of those guys walk. Tyler Algier, Caden Ellis, Arnold Ebiketie, those guys, right? It does seem to be leaning in that direction. And to me, it's going to be fascinating to see of those guys, if that prediction is correct, which one of those guys signs the earliest on Monday. And I'm sitting here thinking that running back market, I think, might go fast. And so I think we may be sitting here by Monday night seeing guys like Tyler Algier and Kenneth Walker and
so sad
Rashad White and all these other running backs. I think those guys are going to get snatched up real quickly. And so I think we'll find out the fate of someone like Tyler Algier maybe pretty early. But I'm not convinced that we're going to see the Falcons successfully be able to re-sign some of those guys, the higher profile guys, going into Monday, because I think a lot of those guys, like we saw this last year with some of the linebacker, where we were connecting a lot to Jamie Sherwood of the Jets, and then he's re-signed with the Jets on Sunday evening, and then I was like, okay, well, Falcons pivot to Divine Diablo, and I think if we get to Sunday and the Falcons haven't locked up some of these guys at that point in time, if it's Sunday 10 p.m. Eastern time or whatever, I think we can say at that point that a lot of those guys are going to walk come Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, etc. So if I'm predicting who's going to be the first guy to resign, it's probably going to be some low-key free agent that doesn't really have that much of a market. And Zane Gonzalez, I think, is as good a bet as anybody.
That's a good one. That's definitely an intriguing one, no question. What about for you, Jarvis? Who's maybe that free agent that you think might be the one that the Falcons say, hey, we want to go out and make him a priority?
I wouldn't say that this guy will be a priority, but I would say that it would be a nice back end of the roster type signing. That's Laquelle London. I feel like he played really solid last year. He can be a nice rotational guy behind the guy that you draft as a defensive tackle in the 2026 NFL draft. I think that will be a nice combination of guys that you can kind of rotate in and of course, take them out on third and long, and put in those big dogs and have those guys hunt a little bit. So because I really feel like it has to be an emphasis on getting bigger in the middle of this defense this year, because they can't allow teams to run the football on them the way teams ran the football on them last year. That is unacceptable in my eyes. So yeah, I really feel like Laquelle London will probably be one of those low-key signings, nice, maybe 1 year deal, 1 or 2 year deal, maybe, not that much guaranteed money in that second year, and say, hey man, you want to come back to us and run it back? And more than likely, I feel like he's not going to be that big of a market for a guy like that, because he's a nose tackle and he got a few sacks for you last year. So I think there's definitely some value there.
Okay. I like that one. That's intriguing as well. What about for you, Maria? Do you see from the 19 unrestricted free agents that the Falcons have to make a decision on? You see any of them that maybe the Falcons might make a priority, or may say, hey, not that it has to be the best of that class of free agents or that group of free agents, but just maybe one that they're like, hey, we can go ahead and knock this one out early?
Yeah, I mean, it makes me so sad because a lot of these guys, I agree with Aaron. Like, I don't think they're going to be here anymore. And we said that a while ago, that Tyler Algier, enjoy the last season of Tyler. Caden, it's looking like that's not going to be happening for them. And I'm looking at this list of free agents, unrestricted free agents, and I'm thinking Bradley Pinion, maybe you bring him back, like there's always a market for a punter, but this is a guy who's a PA rep in your locker room, and not that it matters to this front office, but he's obviously got a big say in there and he's a big leader. So that may be another one if we want to continue on the special teams route. But I would expect a lot of these guys to hit the road. I think this roster is going to look really different. I really do. And this is one of the years where, if you would have asked me the last 3 consecutive years, which year would be the most different? And it's not just because of the new front office. We saw that, whenever Terry Fontenot and Raheem Morris came in here, and Arthur Smith. I just feel like this is loading up to be one of the most, what's the word I want to use? It's just going to have the most change we've seen in a while. Yeah. And I think that the fact that they are alluding to all this draft capital, as we've been talking about, and not having allegiance to players and a new vision for the roster, it doesn't look very good for these unrestricted free agents. They're going to try to get the most they can out of letting a lot of those guys go elsewhere.
Yeah. Aaron, Jarvis, Maria, give me one name, and Maria, you kind of alluded to it already as well, but give me one name, and it doesn't have to be one of the names I mentioned, just any of those free agents, the number one person you're like, the number one player you're like, yeah, probably not going to see him in a Falcons uniform next year. Free, Jarvis, Maria, go.
Let's go Arnold Ebiketie. Sure. He's not going to be here.
Jarvis?
I hate to say this. It might be D. Alford. Probably not going to be here. I don't think he's going to be here.
Yeah, D's a good one.
Yeah, I like I said, I see his value. I see you, D. I see you. You know what I'm saying? Even when nobody else wanted to see you. You know what I'm saying? We know Free didn't want to see
we know where that shot was fired.
Free didn't want to see you after that Minnesota game. You know what I'm saying? I'm standing up for you, Doc. I got you, bro. But that's gonna be the guy that's gonna be kind of like, man, that sucks. But he should be able to find a job somewhere else, though, for sure.
I'm going to stick with mine. It's been coming for a long time. Tyler Algier will not be playing for the Falcons next year, if I had to predict it. I think Tyler should go get paid elsewhere. He has earned himself a lot of money. I'm very, very happy for whatever happens for Tyler in the future, but very sad to see him go.
Yeah, I would have to agree with Maria as well. I think Tyler Algier is probably the safest bet for, hey, we've seen the last of, what do we call them? Thunder and
they still didn't agree on like a tandem name. They never agreed
I don't
on
think we ever kind of, I don't think we ever kind of
Yeah.
solidified what the 1-2 punch of that Batman Robin was. But yeah, just because of what the market is dictating and what he can command elsewhere, you can't blame him for going somewhere else and just getting paid based off what a fifth rounder was able to do here in Atlanta. Thanks to our everydayers for making the Falcon Squad Show your first listen of the day. Be sure to stop by Locked On Falcons with your host, Aaron Freeman, as your second listen. The Falcon Squad Show and Locked On Falcons are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We will see you next time.